All right. Well, we'll just get started, and then if anybody joins us, we'll happily welcome them. And then if not, we'll just share this recording to anybody who wants it. So, hi, my name is Kylie Warmeth. I am a registered dietitian, and I am also the Healthy Kids Manager at the Down East Partnership for Children. And today we're going to be doing our last Food Smarts class for this before the summer, but we'll restart doing classes again next year. So I look forward to being able to teach more of these and get you guys engaged in some healthy eating behaviors and habits. So today we're going to be talking about planning for picky eating behaviors, reading food labels, and drinks that meet your family's needs. And so our agenda for today, just go over it very quickly. Just as a reminder, being polite in the Zoom, we're going to go over some challenges, read a nutrition label, we'll have a recipe demonstration, and then that'll be it for our class. So let me get back to here. So just as a reminder, just common Zoom rules, keep your microphone muted if possible, unless you come off to ask a question. Sign in the chat box, be kind and respectful, and then don't yuck anyone else's yum. And that will make a little bit more sense later. So the first thing that I thought we would talk about today are just picky eating behaviors. And so one of the most common things that I hear from parents and caregivers are that when children refuse to eat, or even adults, when anyone who a caregiver is attempting to feed refuses to eat, then it can be really challenging for them to prepare meals. And so it can be really frustrating for family members. It can result in short order cooking. So when we talk about short order cooking, we're basically talking about making meals on demand. So you might cook spaghetti and meatballs. Your child says that they would rather have chicken nuggets, and you go make chicken nuggets for your child instead of just only making the spaghetti and meatballs. And so that's what we call short order cooking. So basically, when a parent or caregiver takes on the role of being a constant chef, which is also very stressful and overwhelming for a lot of caregivers. Picky eating behaviors can result from a variety of different reasons. It can be fear of foods, it can be sensory disorders, which are pretty common, especially in young children. And so always taking your child to a doctor and seeing if you're having a problem with severe picky eating, to just have them checked out. It could also be the result of just the child knows that you're going to make something else for them. And so they get very excited that the idea that they could have whatever they want. So rather than eat the meal that's been prepared, they just say, oh, but I want to have this. And so then they ask for it. And then that behavior is continuously practiced over and over and over again. And so then the child refuses to eat anything that's not being demanded. And sometimes children will do really stressful behaviors like refuse to eat, or I've seen instances of children like throwing food if they don't want it, maybe throwing their plate on the floor, having a temper tantrum, or really big emotions as a way of trying to get the caregiver to give them the food of their choice, essentially, saying like, I'm going to continue to do these behaviors until I get what I want. And that can also be very frustrating for the parent. And so I would just remind you all that I'm not a parenting expert. All I can do is talk about how it is to feed children. But when we're dealing with picky eating behaviors, reinforcing that the food on the table is the food that's going to be eaten is only going to help in the long run, even if in the short run, it means that you have to deal with some unpleasant behaviors. And so as a reminder, no child is a bad child. Some children just have really big emotions and really big feelings and need a way to get it out and express that. And so even when we're feeling very frustrated, just reminding ourselves to talk to our children as if they're just tiny humans. So reminding them that this is the dinner that you made. This is the dinner that's going to be good for them, or the lunch that's going to be good for them. Here are all of the reasons why. You can tell them that it's because it'll make them strong and healthy, that the vegetables in it are good for their stomachs and their bellies, that they'll grow up to be big and strong. And just can remind them of all of the great things that are in the meal. No child will starve. I absolutely promise you that even if they refuse one meal, it just means that they're going to be super hungry for their next meal. I have never seen a child starve themselves for any more than maybe one meal and a snack. If you have a very stubborn and, strong-willed child, maybe they'll go multiple meals, but they won't go forever. You won't have a situation where you just have a child on your hands who hasn't eaten in days. And I know that sometimes you feel like if your child skips lunch because they don't like what you made, now they're starving, and then if you don't make a good dinner for them, something you know that they'll eat, then they just won't eat today. Oftentimes that's not the case. Oftentimes the child will eat whatever is at the table because they know that they're hungry. And so what I always recommend is following the Ellen Sater model for division of responsibility. So parents, caregivers will take leadership of what, when, and where to feed a child, and your child determines how much and whether to eat what you provide. So an easy way to do this is to always make sure there's at least one thing on the table that the child will eat, but not to be a short order cook. So if you know that you're going to be making lasagna and broccoli and garlic bread, you know that your child will either eat the lasagna, the garlic bread, or the broccoli, but you're not going to get up and make chicken nuggets just because the child is asking for chicken nuggets. You're going to make dinner, and then from what's on the table, you can allow your child to decide what they would like to eat from what's on the table. If they decide that they don't want to eat the lasagna and they don't want to eat the broccoli and they just eat the bread, that's going to be a very hungry child for breakfast in the morning. So I highly recommend making something very delicious and filling, like oatmeal and berries. And that way you'll know that your child is eating the food that you provide. You're not going out of your way and having lots of stress, and they're still eating yummy foods. So you take control of what, when, and where, and your child decides how much and whether to eat what you provide. Another solution to bringing and kind of solving this picky eating dilemma is to bring children into the kitchen. Your child is much more likely to eat the foods that you're offering if they're in the kitchen with you as well. So allow them to get in the kitchen and mix some stuff up. Allow them to, pour something into a pot. Give them their own stool and let them stand next to you. The task that the child does doesn't have to be a large task, and it can also just be a bonding moment for you and your child. So if you don't currently bring your child into the kitchen, I would consider the barriers that you're working with. Sometimes it can be just like, oh, it's just going to be faster if I just do it all by myself. But if you start introducing them at any age, they can join you in the kitchen, then that child can become a helper and help you make things faster in the future. So by the time that they're 15, 16, or 17, or even 14, they can begin to prepare meals alongside of you and take over large portions of the responsibility. I have some friends who have 15-year-old children who make full dinners for the family. They have one night a week where it's their responsibility to make dinner, and my friend supervises them while they're making dinner. But that's one night she doesn't have to make dinner because she raised a child who's confident in the kitchen. And so that skill also follows them into adulthood. Children who cook at young ages, or at any age really, go off to become adults who are capable and confident cooking for themselves in their own homes when they finally do leave the home. So, and the earliest that you can get your child into the kitchen, the more confident that your child becomes in the kitchen, the more likely they are to be able to assist you in the kitchen in the future, and the more likely they'll be to be able to cook meals for themselves in the long run. So this is a really great opportunity to provide assistance for yourself and then also provide assistance to your child. And so bringing your children into the kitchen can be a lot of fun. It can also be frustrating. So on a day where you're just not in the mood to bring your child into the kitchen, maybe you had a really stressful day at work, maybe you rushed home to be able to even make this meal, maybe you're really, really tired. Those aren't the days that I would recommend bringing, especially a younger child, into the kitchen. But maybe you had a great day at work, you're in a great mood, you got home 30 minutes earlier than you thought that you were going to get home. And maybe it's a Saturday, maybe it's lunch, it doesn't even have to be dinner, maybe it's just a snack. And you can bring your child into the kitchen and show them knife skills. You can let them, with a plastic knife, cut something up for themselves. You can engage with them and teach them a lot of different things and use it as a learning and bonding opportunity. So in days where you're in a good mood, this could be a good opportunity to engage your child in a way that makes you feel really great. The second part of today's class is going to be discussing nutrition facts labels. So I'm sure a lot of people have gotten education on nutrition facts labels before. It's one of the most common educational components when people are learning about food and nutrition. I do want to give just a friendly, I guess, heads up that the dietitian that I am and the way that I teach nutrition is often to focus on what makes our bodies feel good versus what a label says or Instagram says, or I mean, to be honest, sometimes even what your doctor says in certain situations. So you are the only person who knows your body. And so feeding and fueling your body is a very personal decision. And so my job is to provide you with education and knowledge, and your job is to fuel your body in a way that makes you feel good and happy and joyful. And I always say misery is not sustainable. So keep that into consideration when you're thinking about nutrition facts labels. So the very first part of a nutrition facts label is how many servings are in each container. The second part is how many calories are in each serving. And so as a reminder, for instance, this container has 4 servings. So to determine how many calories are in the entire container, we would multiply 280 by 4, and that would tell us how many are in the entire box. Our society has become very obsessed with calories. So I always like to give the reminder that calories are a unit of energy. They are not a unit of fat, and they're not a way of determining whether or not you'll potentially have a change in your body from eating said food. So reminding yourself that calories are a unit of energy. Units of energy are very important for our body. Calories are very important for our body in keeping a healthy body and having enough fuel and energy to do the things that we love to do. So that's just, that's what calories are. Calories are energy. You can see the nutrients in the second section. So just as a reminder, you want to look for foods that are high in fiber, high in protein, low in sugar, low in sodium, have decent amounts of cholesterol in them. Those are things that you want to look for. But like I said, you can't always tell how a food is going to make you feel just from looking at the nutrition facts label. So taking that opportunity to use it as more of a guide versus as information on what to buy and what not to buy. You're the only person who knows how good something makes you feel. So that's my education on nutrition facts labels. So my strongest tips for food labels, which I kind of just mentioned, which is don't get too caught up in the label. It's not the same for every single person. It's based off of a generalization of all people. So there's lots of people and lots of different bodies and lots of different cultures who eat lots of different foods. So don't get too caught up in the label. It's really just a guide. Always check for allergies if you come from a family or a household that has allergies in it. There's a section on the nutrition facts label, which will tell you about allergies. Calories are energy, not that. One common thing I often hear is, oh, I don't want to eat that because I don't know what all of the ingredients are. Or I was told not to eat foods that I can't pronounce everything in the ingredients list. It's okay to not know the ingredients. It's not a determination of whether or not a food is healthy, is whether or not you can read all of the ingredients. I'm not exactly sure who started that or where that started, but there's a lot of fancy names for chemicals and things that are just basic food components. So, just checking and saying, oh, I can't read all of the ingredients in this, so I really shouldn't eat it, is not necessarily a good indication of whether or not a food is healthy for you, because there are lots of foods with lots of ingredients in them that are perfectly healthy for you. And a really great example of those are always going to be whole grains or refined grains, because they're the ones that have added nutrition back into them. So they get added back into the food. So you'll see added like vitamins and nutrients. And just because you see riboflavin on the thing and you say, well, I don't know what riboflavin is. I've never been able to buy riboflavin at the grocery store. Nobody's ever encouraged me to buy riboflavin before, so therefore I shouldn't eat this food. Turns out riboflavin is just a vitamin B. And so if you go purely based off of whether or not you know something or can pronounce it, then you would miss out on very healthy foods, because, for instance, riboflavin is just vitamin B, and that's really good for you and you really need it. So we aren't all chemists. We should not have an understanding of how to pronounce or understand all of the foods in a food label. The last thing I always just remind my families is to protect your sanity and your health. You are not always going to be able to make an entire meal from scratch. There's going to be occasions where you're going to want to buy a box and you're going to just enhance the box. For instance, one of my favorite examples of this is Hamburger Helper. I am a registered dietitian. I love to have Hamburger Helper on hand, primarily because it's very fast. I almost always have ground turkey or ground beef on hand, and I can literally just throw in vegetables. So I make it, toss in some spinach, some broccoli, and some green peppers. And now I have a meal that has a grain component, which would be the pasta. So it's a grain / a carb component, which is the pasta. It has a protein, which is the ground beef or ground turkey. And then it has vegetables, which is the spinach or bell peppers or even tomatoes that I've added into it on my own. So when people go and they say, oh, but that's a box of Hamburger Helper, that's not good for you, who gets to make that decision for me? That's a good meal for me and my family. It's a fast meal and it's a balanced meal. And so don't get too caught up on, I have to make everything from scratch or it's not healthy. There are plenty of things that you can buy at the grocery store that you can add things to, AKA food enhancements, that will continue to be healthy for you and your family, and provide the nourishment that your family needs in a way that supports your goals and your budget. So I don't expect everybody to be a 5-star gourmet chef. If you have meals that have vegetables and fruits in them, then in my opinion, you're winning. So just eat vegetables, eat fruits, and win the day. The last thing on our list to talk about today are just drink choices. And so as a recommendation and as a reminder, water can be offered after 6 months old, but you want to offer it in very, very small quantities. Water can be toxic for children who are that little because their kidneys can't really handle the excess fluid. And so at 6 months, you can offer water essentially to play with if you're introducing like a training cup, which can also be referred to as a sippy cup. So if you're introducing a training cup and you want them to practice with their training cup, you can put water in their training cup, or you could put breast milk in their training cup, or you could put formula in their training cup. And after 1, water remains an excellent choice. So you don't have to monitor so much after they turn 1 year old how much water they're drinking. They can just have water throughout the day. Juice is not recommended. So, and I should actually specify that 100% fruit juice is not recommended for children who are under 1 year old. That's for the same thing. It can mess with their systems. I know oftentimes a recommendation, like an old wives' tale recommendation for constipation, is to provide fruit juice. That is no longer recommended. And so if you have an issue with constipation, I encourage you to seek out your child's pediatrician or their healthcare provider to ask about solutions for constipation. Breastfed babies can go up to 5 to 10 days without having a bowel movement, without it being considered constipation. Formula fed babies can go 5 to 7 days without having a bowel movement before it's considered constipation, as long as their belly remains soft. So, and they don't seem to be in any like visible discomfort. So try not to offer juice to your child until they're at least 1 year old. Wait to offer sugar sweetened beverages for as long as possible. So the recommendation literally is the longer you hold off, the better it is for your child. Get your child used to drinking breast milk. If they're a breastfed baby, water and formula and cow's milk after 1. So after 1, you can introduce cow's milk. And so just keeping that in mind too, formula is typically no longer recommended without doctor's suggestion or recommendation after 1 year old. So if you need to switch to something else, cow's milk is an option that you can have that's, you know, high in good fats, high in protein, and high in vitamin D. So recommendations for after 1, breast milk, cow's milk, or water. Try and hold off on juice for as long as possible. Try and hold off on sugar sweetened beverages like Gatorade, Kool-Aid, Powerade, tea, sweetened tea, herbal teas, any of those types of things until you feel like it's a good choice for your family. With that being said, nobody knows your child as well as you do. Nobody can tell you that your child can't have these things. It's really just a recommendation on what works for your family. But I will say the more you introduce water, the more likely your child is to drink water in the long run. And water, if you live someplace where you're drinking water out of your tap is safe, is free. So if you're privileged enough to have an area where you can drink from your tap or you have filtered water, it is free to offer your child that. And so if you get them really good at drinking water, one less expense you have to worry about later. So just encourage your child to drink water, encourage them to drink cow's milk, encourage them to continue drinking breast milk. You can serve breast milk for a child until you and your child decide that you no longer want to offer breast milk. There's no age limit that you have to be concerned about when it comes to offering breast milk. So however long you and your child feel confident and comfortable offering breast milk, continue to offer breast milk for that period of time. When it comes to healthy drinks like milk substitutes that we sometimes see, for instance, I get a lot of questions about almond milk or pea milk or oat milk. Like there's lots of milk substitutes now. And so the same recommendation for that applies. Try and hold off on those as long as possible. It's important to know that for plant-based milks like oat milk and almond milk, if your child is lactose intolerant or has an issue processing dairy products or has a dairy allergy, that these plant-based milks are not always the best option because they're not nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk. So they have limited protein, vitamin D, and calcium. So soy milk can be a substitute that you can offer your child. It can be equivalent to cow's milk, but the other ones you really want to try and avoid and offer them something else in between. So your pediatrician can help you to find some suitable options for your child specifically, but a common recommendation is to offer soy milk, and WIC also will provide soy milk for your family if they can't have cow's milk or dairy products for some reason. So I do have a family friend whose daughter is allergic to dairy products, and so she does get soy milk through WIC, and she's able to offer that to her child instead. So take advantage of some of the alternative benefits that your family can receive from assistance programs like WIC. And then sugary drinks like sodas, fruit drinks, lemonade. If it doesn't say 100% fruit juice, then it's not 100% fruit juice. So if it just says fruit drink or juice, it's probably not 100%. So they can have, they can have some added sugars that can be harmful to your child's health. They can increase the risk of dental cavities, of having heart disease. They could introduce fatty liver disease. And so just trying to cut back on those extra sugars until your child reaches an older age. Now, this isn't to say that if you offer these things to your child, you're putting your child in harm's way. It's just something to be mindful of when you're considering the options that you have available to your child. So for every maybe 2 cups of milk that you offer, you can offer 1 flavored sugary something instead of the flavored sugary beverage being the primary and then milk being something you offer on the side. Or maybe water is number 1, and then on your hierarchy in your house, it's water and then milk and then sugary drink. And so you ask your child first, do they want water or milk? If they refuse both of those, then maybe you go to the last choice. But that's not to say that offering your child a sugary drink or chocolate milk in place of water or cow's milk is going to cause them harm in the long term. It's really just a recommendation to help keep them in the healthier options, which of course are water. So now I have this video that I would like to show for you guys that we had an intern film. It's about an avocado smash dip type of recipe. And so it's only 3 minutes long. And so I'm just gonna play the video. I know that avocado can sometimes be a very different food for some people. And so I thought this would be a fun video as we talk about introducing ourselves and our children to things that potentially they have never had before. So I always like to bring up at this time the rule of 10, which is 10 times in 10 different ways before we decide that we don't like something entirely. So you might find that you really hate avocado when it's put into guacamole, but you like it on toast. Or you might find that avocado on a bagel with some salt is a lot more appealing to you than when it's mixed into like a puree like yogurt. So playing with different foods and offering them in different ways before you just decide that you don't like something is really healthy for you, but it's also very important for your child. So find lots of different ways to offer foods that you enjoy. And the more you expose your child to it, the more likely they are to eat it in the future. So exposing a child to a food can sometimes look like taste testing, but oftentimes when children are exposed to a food for the first time, they're more hands-on and sensory with it. So you might see them smelling it, you might see them playing with the texture, touching it, you might see them rubbing it in their hands or holding it up to their mouth. You might see little licks versus bites. And that's really them just exploring this new food. Try not to get frustrated at the exploration process because that process is critical to them trying the food. And so if you want them to eat it, that exploration process, that playing with it, that really engaging with it is going to be a super important part of them eating it in the future. And they may not eat it for the second time. They may not eat it the third time. They may not eat it the fourth time. It may take all the way to the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th time of that exploration process before they're willing to actually try it. So try not to buy a lot of it, buy smaller amounts of this new food so that you're not frustrated at food waste. And make sure you carve out enough time at dinner if you're going to be introducing something new to let them explore, where you're not feeling rushed to put them to bed, rushed to get bath time done, rushed to finish homework, and really allow a good 15 or 20 minutes for meal times. And when possible, try and eat together as a family. So now I will show you this avocado demonstration video. Oops, let me go back. Oh, there we go. All right, so that was our video on an avocado dip. And so, like she said, there's tons of different ways to try that dip. And so, if that is something that you're interested in, then I highly recommend that you give that a try and really enjoy having that available to you. So, I'm happy to send out the recipe with the recording. So, if you are interested in having that recipe, I will send it out after today's class. And so I think we are at the end. So just as a reminder, if you came in late, just to please put your name into the chat box so that I can count your attendance. Inside the chat box is also a survey. If you haven't done the survey for me previously, I do ask that you just take 1 or 2 minutes and fill it out. I really just need your name and your email address so that I can send you some information after the class, including the recording or any handouts or anything that I have. So if you have a minute to fill out that survey, then I would highly appreciate that. And so we are at the end of our class. Are there any questions that I can answer from any of my participants who are live? No? Okay. Well, I have had a pleasure teaching you guys this class today, and I hope that you found it helpful. If there is anything that I can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach me at my first initial, which is K, and then my last name, Wormuth, which is WORMUTH at depc.org if you have any follow-up questions that you might have later. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the fall, hopefully, when we do a lot more programming. So I hope this evening finds you very well, that you have lots of great blessings and a healthy dinner if you haven't already eaten, or a healthy breakfast or a healthy lunch, depending on when you're watching this. And if there is anything else that you need, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to be of a resource to any and all of you. So thank you so much for coming to today's class. Oh, are you on mute?
Yeah, I got one question. You said that the class starts back in the fall. That's August?
It'll either be August or September. It just depends on how we're doing programming. Currently, I'm looking for a new specialist, and that position would be the one responsible for doing these classes in the future. And so when I have that person hired, I'll be able to get a better idea of when we're going to start offering these classes again. So I'm hopeful to start in August, but it might not be until September.
Well, I'm sorry I only made it to the last one.
I have a recording of the first one if you want me to email that to you. I don't have a recording on the second one, unfortunately.
Okay, you can send it to me.
What's your email address?
It's my name, Monique Thompson.
Okay.
All lowercase, 1986 at gmail.com.
All righty. I will send that to you today, right after this class.
All right. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I hope you have a great evening.
All right. Bye.
Bye.